This week I learned that last week I was wrong, and sometimes your first feeling about a book, it's probably the correct one. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another weekly update, the last for the month of August, as 2022 continues to just zip on by, as does my TBR so far this year. So guys, let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about what am I reading. Guys, I finished The Forgetting Moon by Mr. Brian Lee Durfee. Simon & Schuster Saga Press. Guys, this was excellent. I don't know how else to put this. I don't think that this series gets nearly enough run. Now look, I've only read book 1. I'm reading book 2 next month. But I know that I've read lots of other series that I've liked and actually talked a lot about on this channel that weren't as good as this. And that's not just because I know Brian, and I think Brian's a great guy. I'm going to be honest about these things always. This is so underrated. I don't know how this has not blown up, like, to where everyone in the fantasy community has heard about this. It was so good, guys. It's very much on par with, like, Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, which you know that I adore. I think that Song of Ice and Fire fans are going to find a lot to like in here. I mean, I've got to talk about this somewhere else on the channel because I've got so much to say about this. But just know, this big, giant, beefy book never once felt like it was long or it was dragging or there was something I didn't like about it. I loved pretty much the whole thing. And it was just one of those things where after we finished recording our House of the Dragon episode the other night, the three of us on that panel had all read it, and we talked about it for 15 minutes after we finished, talking about that show. So, yeah, it's lots of things to say, and I don't want to say too much about it because I do think I might end up doing a video for it here pretty soon. But, yeah, it completely blew me away into a point to where I feel like I'm embarrassed that it took me this long to read it. I always said I was going to read it when Brian completed it. And the thing was, because of the virus that shall not be named, he's had a lot of things that has delayed that third book. So that's really why I want to make the excuse of why I put it off this long. But, yeah, worth the wait, guys. So usually I would tell you guys, hey, something was really, really good. But, don't bust your TBR for it. And read this immediately. If you have any opening in your TBR or you need a change of pace, read it immediately. It's really, really good, guys. I can't say enough about it. As for the other thing I've been reading, guys, I don't know if I'm going to make it through Night Angel again. Here's the thing: is I did that video recently about books I didn't finish or books I just wanted to try again, and Night Angel was the first one that I said I was going to try again here. It's kind of weird in that every time I feel like it's getting pretty good, Brent Weeks does what Brent Weeks does and just does something just so ridiculous or just hard to follow or get behind why he made that decision. And it makes you just want to chunk this giant brick across the room. And guys, I don't know if I've got that much more of this story left in me. So I remember reading the first one and finishing it the first time. I'm at parts I don't remember anything about it at all. I think it's because I had this exact same reaction to it. But, I've went well on the record about how I felt about Brent Weeks in here on this channel, about how I think the guy's a talented writer. I think he just tries so hard to just be risky, and I admire that he takes risks. He will do that, but I don't feel like the stories that he's telling, I don't feel like he needs to do that. He's telling pretty good stories. He just feels the need to overreach, and he goes too far sometimes, and not in like a offensive or appalling kind of way, just in like you didn't need to do that. You had me interested in your story. You didn't need to take it there, So I keep saying I'm going to go ahead and finish it, but the thing is, like, I have no interest to read book 2 and 3, so why am I going to finish book 1 again just to say I'm not going to read book 2 and 3? So as far as series I want to try again, 0 for 1 now. It's kind of depressing, and it's got me already kind of in that negative space where I'm like, no, maybe sometimes your first instinct is usually the correct one, because I'm not feeling very, very optimistic after revisiting Night Angel here. But, hey, I'm not going to just say I'm going to go ahead and nix everything else I talked about in that video. But right now, I don't know if I'm going to be finishing this yet again. So sorry, guys, if you did want to hear me talk about Night Angel. That's about as much as I can say about it, because I'm not going to have a ton of nice things to say. Really, I'm not. And it's a shame. It's a shame because I thought he actually had a good idea, just like he did with Lightbringer. And he just flushes it down the toilet. So what did I do, guys, to kind of, wash the Brent Weeks out of my eyeballs? There was a book that was kind of floating around my Discord a couple of months ago. It seemed like everyone was reading it. And I said, oh, it's horror this close to spooky season. I'll just go ahead and save it for October, right? I'm talking about Hellmouth by Giles Christian. It's just a novella. It's like 60 pages. So I figured, hey, why not just put it in there? I needed a change of pace after this, so I went ahead and picked it up. And guys, I read it in 2 sittings. Would have done it in 1 sitting if it wasn't my lunch break at work. But it was brilliant. It was really, really good. And here's the thing about it is I've always been interested in medieval horror since I read Divine Comedy in high school. This made me think kind of like the Inferno and Purgatory parts of Divine Comedy. I really, really got a lot of those vibes out of it, and I wouldn't be shocked to hear if Mr. Christian was actually inspired by that. But really good stuff, guys. It's a low commitment. You'll blow through it really, really fast. There was an interesting way of his writing process. The first thing I've read by this author, but I am interested in his Arthur books after reading this because Petrick was really, really high on the Arthur books after reading Bernard Cornwell Warlord Chronicles. That was one of the ones that he recommended to me. He said that if you liked Warlord Chronicles, I think you'd like Giles Christian. So it's one of those things where like an author I'd never really heard of, and now I'm kind of hearing about him all over the place. But Hellmouth was very, very good, guys. Like I said, the writing style was kind of interesting. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm sure there's actually like a phrase for his writing style in there, but every once in a while I was just like, that's an interesting way to use that sentence. But the story was really good, and it only made me wish that it was longer. And therein lies my problem with novellas and short stories is I feel like right when they're getting good, they end. And I have heard some gripes after I finished. Some people were kind of iffy about the ending, and I'm just going to tell you guys, that's 99% of horror stories. Authors really ever stick the landing perfectly in a horror story, because if you have a happy ending, people say it's just way too, wish fulfillment. You have a really, really dark ending, people say it left them depressed. You have an ambiguous ending, people say they need some kind of ending. So I feel like horror writers are kind of really stuck there. And I don't know that Giles Christian is necessarily a horror writer, but this was a horror story. And definite recommend. You'll read it really, really quick. Great palate cleanser. But it is disturbing, guys. It is very, very horrific. It is very R-rated. So you have been warned. But thank you to the people on the Discord that recommended that one, because it was very, very good. And it's got me kind of already anxious for October and some of these scary stories I plan on reading for the month. But let's talk about what I'm going to read before we get there, guys. I did start my reread of A Clash of Kings. Now, I didn't know which one I was going to read, which version I was going to read, so I don't have a Folio Society this time. This is the one that I've had forever. This is the illustrated one that one of my awesome patrons, Fogey, actually sent to me, this illustrated one. And the only thing I'll say about these illustrated ones, guys, is they're beautiful, but I would really only recommend them on a reread because the art in them is beautiful, but it completely spoils stuff about 20, 30 pages before they happen. So I'll just say there, you've been warned on that. But again, I think that Song of Ice and Fire is arguably the greatest fantasy universe ever created. I don't care if the books aren't. I mean, I do care, but I'm just saying that doesn't take away from how awesome the 5 books that have come out are, or 6 if you want to count Fire and Blood. So I'm very excited to revisit this. Not that far into it, about 70 pages. I read the first few chapters yesterday. But I love revisiting this world. And with all of the talk of, Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon reheating up again, it only made me want to read the series again more and remember why I loved it so much. So this is my first reread since 2011 of this, or 2010 maybe. I don't know, 2010 or 11, something like that. The years all bleed together at this point. But I'm really excited to revisit that world. So I'll be working on that this week. And I'll also be fitting in a Jade Setter of Janloon by Miss Fonda Lee. That is a green bone novella. So here I am, a guy who doesn't read very many novellas. I'm going to be doing 2 of them here in a matter of weeks. But I want to finish those 2, Clash of Kings and Jade Setter, before September 6th. That's when Fairy Tale by Stephen King comes out. That's why I didn't start Forgetting Moon's sequel, The Blackest Heart. I didn't start that immediately. 1, because it's a read-along, and 2, because I don't want to have to stop in the middle of it to read the new Stephen King, because I read Stephen King on release day, guys. That's just how it goes. But as soon as I finish Fairy Tale, then I'll be diving back into the world of 5 Warrior Angels. I'm very, very excited. So lots of good stuff on the horizon. I'll be talking to Miss Fonda Lee on the 18th of September, I believe, is the date we picked. So I want to make sure I got Jade Setter in there. Also, I don't mind visiting that world again. Let's talk about this week on the channel, you guys. You get a couple of things out. Remembered why I don't do a lot of reviews to sequel books, because each one just gets lower, lower, and lower. And I've already said the book reviews are kind of struggling on the channel now. But I did want to revisit the First Law world again, so that's why I did that, because they were doing a read-along in the Discord. I wanted to revisit that world and review those 3 books again. So I wrapped it up with the Last Argument of Kings. So now I have a standard review and spoiler reviews for all of the First Law books. The originals, I have for the originals and the sequels. I don't have it for the standalones. People have asked me, are you going to do the same thing with the standalones? Maybe down the line, because like I said, sequel books get less and less interest in reviews as it goes along. So I don't really know if that's something that I want to visit. But I am thinking about doing like a should you read the standalone books kind of video, but no actual date for that. But yeah, always a lot of fun revisiting the cruel and punishing world of Adua. So yeah, I hope that some people will continue to pick that up, because in the end, like I said, all I want is for more people to read The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. We did the debut, not really the debut episode, but the first when we were actually talking about an episode of House of the Dragon for Throne Zone, which we talked about Heirs of the Dragon, the series premiere of House of the Dragon. So Scott and Madison and I had plenty to say, and I think it was a lot of fun, doing that live, being able to talk to some viewers and stuff. I did say that, going forward, I knew the first episode was going to be kind of long because we would have lots of stuff to set up. But going forward, we will try to interact with the people commenting in the chat while we do those episodes live going forward. Plan on doing those every single Monday after a new episode. So, we got 10 weeks of that coming up on the channel. But it was a lot of fun. I love talking to those two about anything. If we get to talk about the world of Ice and Fire, I'm obviously a lot more excited to talk to those wonderful people and, talk to all of you guys in the comments. It's been a lot of fun. It feels like a lot of people are very excited to return to Westeros, and we're excited to talk about it. So I hope you guys will continue to join us live each Monday night as we talk about the newest episode of House of the Dragon. And then I did a off the books, guys. I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have anything that I wanted to really talk about outside of books that I could think of. So I was humming a tune in my head and realized that it was a TV theme song that I actually forgot to put on the list. It was Babylon 5, by the way. Sorry, Steven, if you're watching. I just said, you know what? I should talk about TV themes and introduction sequences, title sequences that you never skip. Because this was a conversation that Danny and I, my old podcast host, way back when, used to always talk about. Was like, what is a TV introduction that no matter if you've seen it one time or you've seen it a dozen times or a couple hundred times, you would never even consider skipping it. So I thought it was a lot of fun to kind of talk about those, even though I know off the book stuff is always going to be kind of iffy on the channel. But it created a lot of conversation on the Discord. But it's some interesting comments so far. Really, it's more about how did you forget this or this one. Guys, like I said, I probably could have come up with 100 of them, but I am upset that I've left off Babylon 5, because that is one of my favorites. But that's the thing when you're just kind of doing this, just off the top of your head, just writing down, pen to paper, you're going to forget about some things. But again, a lot of fun things to talk about. And that's kind of the whole point of Off the Books, is talk about some things that I do like, outside of just reading. And I think that TV is something that most of us can agree on that we like to do from time to time when we're not got our nose shoved in books, right? But let's go ahead and talk about some next week plans, guys. We are going to, like I said, every Monday we're going to continue doing Throne Zone. Episode number 2 is called The Rogue Prince, so I think you're going to get lots and lots of Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen that episode, and I, as a Doctor Who fan, I'm very, very excited to see that. Seeing the opinions evolve really quickly on Matt Smith has been a lot of fun. A lot of vindication on this end here, who is always going to be a champion for Mr. Matt Smith. Wonderful, wonderful actor. But I'm going to wrap up my Lord of the Rings talk with the review of Return of the King. Going to be closing down that original trilogy. Again, reviews were iffy, but I can't not talk about Lord of the Rings. It was something that I wanted to do forever. I put off until the Amazon series Rings of Power was coming out. But it's finally here. I'm finally going to be doing that. Want to get that last review up before Rings of Power, which I'll talk about in a minute, does debut on September the 2nd. And after that, guys, I was kind of open, and I don't think I'm just going to do a basic review Because I don't know. I want to talk about this in some way. I don't think I necessarily want to do spoilers. I was thinking after Lonesome Crown, that's book 3, comes out and I finish it, I was thinking maybe I could have like a roundtable spoiler discussion and have Brian on there. That would be really awesome to do. But, I haven't actually arranged that with him yet. So I don't want to just say that's what I'm going to do. But I want to talk about this book in some facet because I want more of you guys to read it. I think it really would just completely just blew me away. I mean, my expectations were decently high just from people that I trust telling me about it. But now that I've read it, I'm like, it's even better than I expected. So I want to talk about it in some format. So I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be, but I would be looking out for that sometime this week. I do want to talk about it before I start The Blackest Heart, in the middle of September or so. But before I go, guys, there are some TV and movie things to talk about real quick. House of the Dragon viewership, like I said, it did have its debut. 10 million viewers. It is the highest series premiere of all time for HBO. And it was kind of one of those things where part of me is like, yeah, I remember all you guys dropping in my comments after I made that video about why House of the Dragon will be good, telling me, no way, there's no way you're giving this another chance. Well, some of you were either liars or you let your curiosity get the better of you. And I always kind of thought that the pilot would get, people were willing to give it a chance. They loved Game of Thrones too much not to give it a chance. But I do feel like I said, that it's starting to feel like Game of Thrones, people are starting to forgive it in real time. And I think this is just showing that people are ready to give them another chance. They are. I'll be interested to see how the hold is, the audience hold for episode number 2, because it's going to go down. It always goes down. Series premieres almost always go down. It's rare that they go up after the first episode. They might over time, but after the first episode, the second, they don't usually go up. So I'll be interested to see what that hold is. And I imagine it'll still be pretty strong because I feel like the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. There are still those people who refuse to enjoy anything, and they're still just like, I don't care because I know how Game of Thrones ended. Well, you know what? It must suck being unable to enjoy anything, but that's your choice. That's your choice. So I'll be interested to see how that hold is. I'll also be interested to see how things go for Rings of Power here, as it did put out its last trailer. I'll be honest, I liked the trailer before this one much better. I didn't like the music choice. With this, it's like, okay, you got Bear McCreary, who is awesome. I've said Bear McCreary in that video I made the other day. I said Bear McCreary is very much the John Williams of TV. And so you got Bear McCreary and Howard Shore, who did the original Lord of the Rings music and the Hobbit trilogy music, working together to make this fantastic soundtrack. I don't know why you felt like you needed to put that weird music in the final trailer. But as for the show, critics are overwhelmingly positive. I don't want to get into all that stuff, how I feel about what's going to happen with the show. I haven't seen it, so I cannot say. I'm not optimistic about it, but I would love for it to be great, you guys. I really would. But all I'll say is, from a business school perspective, you're seeing these articles now where they're saying this $1 billion gamble that they took on this is basically going to determine Amazon's future as a streaming service. And the business school side of me is saying, then it was a really, really bad marketing campaign that you put out attacking Tolkien fans before they'd even seen 1 second of footage. That was a horrible, horrible decision. So leaving feelings out of it, guys, just from a business end, that's a bad campaign strategy. So if you had that much, you're staking your entire future on this series, that was a very, very bad decision. And please, Amazon, Bezos, call me. You need to get a better marketing department, a better PR department, because they don't get it. That's all I will say about it. But again, guys, I will be watching the first couple of episodes. I think they're doing 2 or 3 episodes the first week, and then it goes weekly after that. I will give those a try. My son is interested in watching because he loves the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But even he kind of pointed out something that we both pointed out watching The Hobbit, is we didn't like how they turned Legolas into like a superhero in the sequel trilogy. He already did enough in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but in the, not the sequel trilogy, but the Hobbit trilogy, it was the sequels, but it's actually the prequel. You know what I mean. But in that, they basically made him like 1 step short of flying. And it looks like with the elf character in this show, they're doing the same thing. So if my 10-year-old is calling those things out, I think you're sure to know that some fans of the Tolkien Legendarium are going to be calling those things out as well. But again, I'm going to give it a clean mind, guys. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to try to do like I did with Witcher. Don't worry about the books. Just try to enjoy it as a show and see how I feel about it. But that's really all I got this week, guys. Did watch another movie with my oldest. He was kind of walking down the stairs the other day, and he was kind of humming the Mission Impossible theme. And I'm like, you ain't never seen those movies. Why are you humming that theme? And he's like, well, let's watch them. I'm like, twist my arm. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. I think it actually passed current James Bond as my favorite spy franchise, which is amazing because I love James Bond. But as they are right now, Mission Impossible is kind of blowing the new James Bond movies away. But we watched Mission Impossible 1. I warned them that, look, the plot is very, very convoluted. But, the action scenes are great. Obviously, he loved, the White Room scene. He loved the train sequence at the end. He loved the aquarium and all that. So he really did love the action scenes. And I'm like, well, that's great because Mission Impossible 2, that's about the only great part is the action scenes. But he does want to watch all of them. So, yeah, very, very good start. I think that movie's, over time, people have kind of, because they talk about the Mission Impossible sequels, about how they get better and better. They do. I think so. Except for 2. I think they do get better and better. They really do. But I do think that first one is really kind of underrated. It really is. It has a very, very complex plot. But the movie as a whole, I love the way that's shot. I love the way it almost goes like some horror vibes sometimes. And really, obviously, that beginning, with the whole team, getting taken out like the first 15 minutes. And if you guys are, 30-year-old spoiler, guys, sorry if that's a 30-year-old spoiler to you guys. You should watch the Mission Impossible franchise. It's really, really great. But I'm glad to be sharing another great franchise that I love with my son. We should be continuing that here in the next couple of weeks or so. But we will be watching that. We will be watching Rings of Power, and my wife and I will be watching House of the Dragon this weekend. So, guys, what are you guys up to? What are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are you playing? Drop in the comments and let me know, guys, and have yourselves an awesome, awesome weekend.